Jane Nash or somebody had recommended.
Oh, okay. Well, I've presented to your church many times. So I don't know. Yeah, the format is very different today, of course. But I guess I need some guidance in terms of
Oh, well, when we get
timing.
going, well, there'll be guidance.
Okay. So you usually have about what, 15, 20 people?
Yeah, well, yeah, we have about 12 now, but generally about 15 to 20.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah.
Well, the first time I presented, they told me later that I had spent too much time explaining things, so you need to cut me off. Okay.
Anyway, no, what we normally do is about 30 minutes, explain what your main issues are, and then opening it up for questions. And then the other issue is whether you want questions during your presentation or not.
Okay.
That's up to you.
Okay, I'm open, yeah, because I mean, I think that giving a little bit of background is good, and especially given, you know, the limitations now on our work during this pandemic, I think it's good to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hi, Rosemary.
She's
I'll put your.
There I am. Hi, everyone. Hello, Judge. Welcome.
Hi, Rosemary.
Nice to see you.
Rosemary lives in my neighborhood. We get together.
Yes, we're the Tiger Woods chums over here.
There you go.
There's Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Can you hear me? It's Martha.
Yes, Martha, we can hear you.
Okay.
Jane.
Oh, you got your
Mute.
She's muted.
mute. You're mute.
Oh, there she is. Good.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you. I must be getting senile.
No.
Hey, Kurt, you can give us instructions, I think, now. Oh, Kurt, your thing is off. Kurt?
Who?
Hi there.
Oh, yeah.
So what's up?
It's about ready to start.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we got everybody, coming in. But yeah, absolutely, we can get started. I'm your.
He's muted.
But
I'm your moderator today. And if you have any questions or need anything from me, Judge Bustamante, you can definitely ask. Otherwise, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, so thank you for the invitation. I'm going to put on my hat for Colonias Development Council, not as Judge Bustamante for the probate court. That's a different topic, and that's a different talk that we could have some other time. But I don't know how many of you are familiar with the organization, so what I'll do is I'll give a little brief overview, a little history of the organization, because I know that there's some more recently formed organizations that are doing some of the work in Colonias, and Colonias Development Council has continued to work in Colonias in rural areas, but more and more in the legal immigration work. So just a little bit of background for those of you who don't know much about this organization. Colonias Development Council has been around for now 33 years. No, wait a minute, 33 years. I'm sorry, 33 years. It started off as the Farm Worker Organizing Project. It came out of the Catholic Diocese of Las Cruces. They used to have an office called the Office of Catholic Social Ministries. And the OCSM created about 13 organizations throughout its diocese, which includes the 10 counties in the southern part of New Mexico. Colonias Development Council is the only one that continues to exist after all of these years. And so we started off with working with farm workers, and then we got involved in doing infrastructure projects, working closely with the county. And so let me just kind of put you through a little short history of that. We worked with the farm workers, the Farm Worker Organizing Project. After, are you familiar with IRCA, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986? So that was a major legislative piece under Ronald Reagan's presidency that allowed for providing amnesty for people who were undocumented. At that point, there were like between 4 and 5 million people who were unauthorized entrants in this country. And there was a provision in IRCA 86 for farm workers. And so what the diocese did was they went out after 86, between 87 and 88, started looking to see if farm workers needed to adjust their status, see if they were eligible for the amnesty. And so that's how we started working with Colonias, because a year after IRCA and all the processing that took place, the question that Carlos Corral and Antonio Lujan had, who were the co-founders of Colonias Development Council, was, okay, so where are all these farm workers? They have adjusted their status. They're now permanent legal residents. So where are they? And coming from a background of social justice, they thought, okay, so the most likely thing that is happening is wage theft, working conditions, health conditions at work. And so they started to look for farm workers, those who had already had adjusted their status. It turns out that none of those things were a priority for these farm workers, but the issue of infrastructure became something that they highlighted. They were living in these colonias, these unincorporated communities throughout the county. There's 35 that are recognized, unincorporated settlements throughout the counties. Some of these communities existed before the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. For example, I live in La Mesa, and La Mesa existed before 1848. And then, of course, with the Gadsden Purchase in 1853, then all of these communities that are considered historical colonias fell into the group or the 35 communities that are designated as colonias. Why colonias? In 1990, the federal government under HUD passed the Cranston-Gonzalez Act, which allowed for funding of infrastructure projects throughout the US-Mexico border. And in order to be eligible to qualify for those federal funds, the state had to recognize these communities as lacking infrastructure. And the main thing was roads, water, wastewater systems, water, just potable water, and then sometimes even electricity. And so the county designated these communities and began to solicit monies from the federal government. In 1994, if you recall, with the free trade agreement, other sources of funding came into play also for infrastructure development, both on the US and on the Mexican border. You have the Border Environmental Cooperation Commission, you have the North Atlantic, the NAD Bank, Development Bank. You had the Community Development Block Grants, you had state appropriations. So there are all these sources, federal and international sources of funding for infrastructure projects. So the Colonias Development Council, because the farm workers had said that that was an issue, then the Colonias Development Council started working, or CDC started working with the county. And we were intermediaries between the county and these communities. A lot of the work was done with leadership development, with working with communities who needed gas, who needed wastewater systems, and those things that were funded by the federal and international funds. But the Colonias Development Council does not have the administrative infrastructure to work with these major projects that are multi-million-dollar projects. So the county took on, especially after 1994, took on all of these projects. The BEC money, the NetBank money, the state appropriations, and then in 2005, Richardson passed the infrastructure, the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund. And so those monies were channeled through the county. So our work continued to be in rural areas, but one of the things that we had been doing had been going and teaching people about environmental codes, about public participation, going to county meetings, going to the state legislature, and those things that allowed people to really know what was going on vis-a-vis this funding for their communities. But when the county started taking more and more of these projects, then we basically took a step back and did more of the civil rights work with the Migra Watch. We had a group of youth who were monitoring the Border Patrol, because there was a lot of harassment, and there continues to be harassment with Border Patrol vis-a-vis these communities. We would see Border Patrol, for example, parked right where the school buses would drop off kids and follow them. The Border Patrol would follow them into the communities. And so those issues continue to be important for people in colonias. And they kept telling us, well, what does it matter, or how does it help us to know what our civil rights are if we don't have a status? And throughout all of these years, people kept asking, how can we adjust our status? Well, the Catholic Diocese provides legal immigration services, and we decided, especially after 2008 and we had the recession, that we needed to change the work that we were doing. Prior to 2008, Colonias Development Council was almost 95 to 97% dependent on private charitable foundation monies for our work, because we were doing community organizing work. But during the recession, I don't know if you recall, but almost a third of nonprofit organizations became defunct during that period. In 2010, that's when we were really feeling the impact of this recession, and the money really was not available for the community organizing work that we were doing. And so we had a series of sessions internally, and we decided that we wanted to go back to the original mission statement of providing citizenship classes, of providing legal immigration services, continue to work with farm workers, continue to work with leadership development initiatives. And so we changed some of the structure of the organization to provide legal immigration services. And so in 2012, because in 2011, half of the staff went on unemployment because we didn't have any funding. And we knew that we were getting some money in 2012, and that's when we started this new initiative. So since 2012, Colonias Development Council has been working in legal immigration work, but particularly with citizenship preparation classes. I had asked Paul to send you our last newsletters and the last couple of years, and that basically reflects some of the more recent work that we have been doing. So let me explain the two different social enterprises that now consist of our major work. The first one, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that, the first one is in Chaparral, which is the Chaparral Family Development Center. We have 3 grants for the pre-kinder programs. We have 48 children that are part of that pre-kinder fund, and now part of this early childhood education care department, not CYFD anymore. And so we have those 3 grants, but we also provide infant care and after-school programs in Chaparral. That's That's a separate social enterprise. And then we have the Integrated Services for Immigrant Families, which is the bulk of the immigration work here in Las Cruces. We work in Las Cruces, we work throughout the county, but we also work in the southeast part of the state. We work very closely with the Mexican consulate in El Paso, providing clinics for them. And so we're basically pretty well, grounded in doing the legal immigration work. Like I mentioned before, the Catholic Charities does provide legal immigration services, but not to the extent that we do. And I think that we're the only one, as far as I know, the only organization, the only nonprofit organization that provides so many citizenship preparation classes. We have what we call a wraparound a program. We have the legal immigration services, we have the citizenship preparation classes, and then we have the promotoras de apoyo familiar. The promotoras de apoyo familiar are these community, they're not health workers, they're lay community workers who help us do the outreach on the immigration. On the immigration itself, we have the legal immigration services that provides citizenship applications, a renewal of work permits. Right now we're doing some what are called perdones, the pardons for people who have overstayed their visa or who came in and need to adjust their status. We have, and the numbers are pretty incredible in terms of the walk-in inquiries that we have every year. Of course, right now with the pandemic, you know, we're basically shut down. But the last few years have been really telling in terms of the need for immigration services. So let's go back and talk about these two sub-programs of ISIF. ISIF is the Integrated Services for Immigrant Families. ISIF consists of the citizenship preparation classes. We started in 2012 just providing the classes. And then they got more and more people who were interested in 2018 and 2019, we were providing between 14 and 16 classes a year with an average number of students of about 15. So I have the numbers here for in 2018, we had 13 classes. In 2019, we had 14. In 2017, we had 16 classes, like really outrageous numbers. But these classes are geared to prepare people who have applied to become US citizens so that they can actually pass their exam. It's a 16-week course. It's 64 hours. It's 4 hours a week. And they're bilingual because the majority of people who want to become US citizens do not qualify to take the exam in Spanish. And so the classes are organized bilingually so that people are able to go through the interview and pass it. So that's the class. From the class, we get probably about half of those people, those students who participate in this class also get their paperwork processed through the office. And it takes between a year to 15 months to actually get from the point of the application to the interview. So once they have taken the class, they continue to study on their own. Midway through the class, Erika, who's the program director for the immigration office, sets up all these interviews with the students, and then we get them ready. If their interview takes longer than 2 months or 3 months after they've submitted the first set of paperwork, we also provide tutoring. Tutoring for the people who say, okay, well, it's been 3 months since I took the class, and now, you know, my interview is coming up. I just want a refresher course. And so we have tutoring. So we have the classes, we have the tutoring, and also Erika, as a legal representative, she's accredited by the federal government, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS. She's accredited legal representative, and she accompanies people to the interview. She doesn't answer for them, but she helps them prepare all the paperwork and have the officers from USCIS ask her questions about the application itself. So that's why it's a wraparound, because we have the classes, we have the legal immigration services, we accompany people. And ideally what we had wanted to do when we started this program was that we would carry people after they became US citizens so that they would get engaged in civil society organizations or civic society organizations. That's what they call in Mexico, sociedades civiles. But we have not gotten there because we're just cranking out so many people, you know, every year. And we just can't keep up with the demand for the adjustment of legal status. So there's a really good opportunity. We've talked about this before with the Federation of Women Democrats. I've brought it up that we have processed and we have helped people complete their citizenship applications in the last now 8 years with over 1,600 people. 1,600 people have become US citizens since we started this program. And that doesn't include, this is just the legal services, but that doesn't include all the people who are adjusting their status, who are also in process right now. The day after Donald Trump won his election in 2016, the next day, the office was filled up with people wanting to become US citizens.
Understandably so.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And so the last 4 years have really seen an increase in interest in becoming US citizens because of the more restrictive criteria that are used now for purposes of deportation of legal permanent residents. And so we do have a really strong interest in people. Even, for example, right now during this pandemic, we have continued to work with folks who want to adjust their status, who want to become US citizens. The intake interviews are being conducted on the phone. People only show up to sign the paperwork. They send their money in, you know, very little contact with folks, but we continue to have, I'm the one that receives the mail for CDC. And so right now we had this last month about 15 people who are going to be US citizens. It's not as many as we had last year or 8 months ago, but you know, there's a trickle of people that are continuing to apply for US citizenship. So the numbers, like I said, the walk-ins we had in, what are my numbers? The walk-ins in 2018 was 4,491. That's how many people actually showed up to the office. That tells you a lot about, you know, how much information people need. In 2019, I think we had 5,300. Okay, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people that are coming in to ask for information. You were going to say something, Paul?
No. I just, that filled up the Pan Am Stadium.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I, in fact, in 2016, when they had the oath ceremony, it was right after the election. And so I had a plan A if Hillary Clinton was going to win, and I had a plan B if Trump was going to win. And so I had to opt to talk about plan B. And I talked about how contentious and how anti-immigrant, you know, this anti-immigrant sentiment that existed in the country, how divided we were. And I actually had this one guy come up to where I was talking, and the federal judge, the federal magistrate judge from Albuquerque, called all the, what do I call the federal marshals to the front because this guy was threatening me. And I was reading my speech and I wasn't even, you know, I wasn't even paying attention. And so this guy was really upset that I was talking about how divided this country was and the role that US citizens have in the you know, the merit that we have, you know, in people going through this adjustment. And it's a very important part of people's lives. It's very transformative. And so this guy didn't like what I was saying, but anyway, that's another story. Anyway, so the classes, we have had classes in 9 communities, all the way from West Texas and Horizon City, in Chaparral, Vado, Anthony, Doña Ana, Butterfield, where's my other one? Hatch, Sunland Park, and then of course Las Cruces proper. So instead of the students having to go to the city, we go to the communities. That's why I said that we continue to work in rural communities, because we go and provide these classes in the rural areas. We work very closely with the churches. We've had the classes at the church, Our Lady of Mercy, I think, Our Lord of Mercy in Hatch, with Anthony Water Sanitation District. Well, the county resource centers have been very, very receptive to having classes there. So we try to go wherever people are at. Okay. I don't know what else I can say about the citizenship preparation classes. The promotoras are we have between 10 and 12 promotoras that help us with the outreach, but they also receive training from us. Again, everything has been on hold this year, but historically we have provided between 10 to 16 training for these women, and not that they're going to be using it to promote anything for the organization except for the immigration work, but the courses or the trainings that we provide range from workers' compensation, wage theft, the probate process, of course. I kind of put that in there. We have had the electoral process. We used to have 2 classes or 2 trainings a year. Work very closely with the clerk's office to provide that. Bullying in the schools, financial literacy. What was the other one? So anyway, so the promotoras tell us the topics that they want us to provide trainings on. And so we would get people to give those trainings. Oh, dementia, Alzheimer's, caring for immigrant families with dementia. We've had the one on happiness. We did one on happiness. We did intergenerational trauma for immigrant families. So the scope of, or the range of the courses that we've provided are pretty, I think I like them pretty broad, but important for the promotoras, because those are the kinds of issues that they're seeing in their communities, in their respective communities. And we have promotoras from Sunland Park, in Chaparral, in Hatch. We have a couple in Anthony, we have some in Vado. And so they're all over the county. And so they're basically the ears on the ground in terms of what's going on in the communities.
What does it cost to get citizenship? What does it cost a person that becomes?
Okay, that's a really good question. With Trump, it went from $725 to I think $1,200.
I knew that, yeah.
Yeah. However, when you ask people why they don't become U.S. citizens, let me take one step back. The average Mexican immigrant, the stay of a Mexican immigrant is 22 years before they become U.S. citizens, compared to, I mean, immediately after 5 years, of course, you know, people who are legal residents can apply for citizenship within 5 years after they adjust their status. But compared to other immigrant populations, Mexicans are the ones that have the longest stay in the United States before they become U.S. citizens. It's actually 22 years.
Why is that?
Koreans, yeah, for Koreans, for Germans, for Japanese, they, you know, as soon as they turn that 5th year here as legal permanent residents, they start their immigration or their citizenship preparation paperwork. But for Mexicans, it's 22 years. It is the longest, and it's the highest amount of years for any immigrant group. So when we ask people, Well, why don't you become a US citizen? You've been here all these years. One of the things is the cost. The other one is that they're afraid they won't pass the exam. They don't speak English. One is that we have a 2,000-mile border. People come and go every week, every 2 weeks, once a month. And so they really don't see much of a need. And so when we start dissecting all of these reasons, I start dismantling, because I give a presentation to all the citizenship classes. I think I give about 42 presentations a year, because if we have 16 classes, I go to at least 2 or 3 of these classes to talk about the 3 Bs: bilingual. I have to write it down. Bilingual, bicultural, and binational. Okay, so I start talking about how it is that they already are here. They think that they're going to lose their Mexican citizenship by becoming US citizens, and that's not the case. But one of the things that always surfaces is the cost.
Yeah.
So check this out. USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, have waivers for legal permanent residents and for US citizens, and other cases too, but mainly those two, so that people can actually adjust their status. So Paul, you were asking how much does it cost? Well, it went from $725 to $1,200. However, with these waivers, sometimes they're partial waivers, sometimes they're all of it is paid for. People don't realize that this money is available. And so what the organization does is to look for those. Of course, we have to get substantiation of poverty level. You know, the federal poverty level guidelines are used. They go to the income support division to get a certification of, you know, of what their salaries are. They have to submit 5 years of income tax returns. So there's very, very rigorous review of people's status, economic status. But then it turns out that something like 94%, at least 94% of the people that we process qualify for some kind of waiver.
Huh?
94%.
Wow.
So the only thing that we charge is the office fee, and is very nominal, because for us to have become accredited by the federal government, and we work with Clinic. I don't know if you're familiar with Clinic. Clinic is the Catholic Legal Immigration Network under the it's called the Conference of Catholic Bishops. They have three main areas. One is Catholic Relief Services, Catholic Charities, and the other one is the Campaign for Human Development. So these are sub areas under the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. So Clinic helps, and they provide technical assistance to us. We are an affiliate of Clinic. And Catholic Charities are tied in with a lot of the immigration work in this country. Catholic Charities, check this out, operate almost 50% of the nonprofit legal immigration services in this country. Okay, so it has a lot of credibility, has a lot of history. So our affiliation with that demands that we have nominal fees, that we can't charge like lawyers would charge. We don't have lawyers on hand, but we have accredited staff who go through. I mean, we have one staff who has had about 45 trainings. She's been doing immigration work for about, 8 years, specifically with CDC, but then she had about 5 years before that. So we have very well-trained people who are providing legal immigration services. So when people come in and apply for the status change or adjustment of their status, we look for waivers for them. So the office cost can be as little as $235, I believe, is the lowest, all the way to, depending on the type of process that they are.
Maybe we should have other people ask questions or make comments. Anybody want to do that? Anyone? Jan?
I haven't. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Bustamante, you said that Catholic Charities operates 50% of the nonprofits. Did I understand that correctly?
Okay. Nationally, Catholic Charities provides technical legal immigration work. In other words, 50% of the nonprofit organizations that provide legal immigration services are under Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities provides other services, but they also have almost 50% of the nonprofit organizations that do immigration work in this country are under Catholic Charities, yes.
Oh, God, thank you.
Yeah, see, Catholic Charities is more than just the illegal immigration services.
Right.
They work with, with, of course, a lot of homeless. They have clinics throughout the country, but most of the nonprofit organizations that provide legal immigration services are Catholic Charities.
Got it. Thank you.
Jane, you had a question?
Yeah. Diana, you mentioned early in your talk that you spoke of 35 colonias in Dona County. And yet I've heard that at the beginning when we first moved here, but I keep seeing references to there being 37 colonias. That's one question. The other question is about, I was quite surprised and interested to hear that the thing that the farm workers were most concerned and interested in the colonias was infrastructure, even more than things like wage theft and protecting their rights and so forth. And I noticed that you said that the promotores focus on citizenship services. I thought I said as opposed to healthcare services. So there's about 3 questions wrapped up into one.
Okay, so historically, when Colonias Development, that's why it's called Colonias Development Council, because it used to be the Farm Worker Organizing Project. And after IRCA kicks in 87, the federal legislation is 86. It's Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. But then it starts in 87. Between 87 and 88, it's an 18-month period in which the Catholic diocese started looking at who would be eligible to get the amnesty and also to adjust their status, because IRCA provided preferential status for farm workers. So when Carlos and Antonio, after IRCA kicks in, after 88, they go back and say, okay, so where are these farm workers? It was then in 88, we're talking about 32 years ago, that the concern then was about infrastructure, about lack of water, about lack of electricity in colonias. Okay, we're talking about 32 years ago. Let me give you an example. In Salem, I don't know if any of you have been up in Salem, it's northeast of Hatch. There was a small community of Salem. In that community, that's one of the first communities in which CDC started working on infrastructure projects. People were buying the butane, propane gas from Juarez. And I remember this because we used to do that when I was growing up in Arizona. We used to buy the gas on the Mexican side, bring it across the border in the trunk of the car, and my mom would hook it up to the house. Well, the same thing was happening in Salem. So people were bringing in these butane, which is the butane or propane? Propane, right? It's propane. Gas. And they were connecting them to the houses with rubber hose.
Oh.
Okay. So you can imagine how dangerous that was. And so
it works, but not very safe, but it works.
Yeah, it's not very safe. And so one of the first things that CDC started working on in infrastructure development was with natural gas. Yeah. Salem got natural gas, and as a result of that, a lot of communities in the area also got natural gas because of the organizing work that took place. And we're talking again about 30 years ago. Okay, so fast forward to after the 1990s and 2000s, and then now, because the infrastructure projects are taken on by the county, we're talking about multi-million-dollar projects with all the funding sources that I mentioned. So there's no room for us because we don't have engineers. We don't have, you know, that kind of I don't know,
Infrastructure.
know-how. Yeah, administrative
pressure.
infrastructure to carry that. So the work shifted from infrastructure projects or infrastructure issues to more on civil rights and social justice issues. So the promotoras, the health department, I mean, in 2013, Susana Martinez signed the Community Health Workers Act, and it's a certification program for women who want to be lay community health workers. And it's very specific to health. So when we talk about promotoras, we talk about promotoras for people who are advocates, who are community advocates. We've had promotoras de negocios for business. We've had promotoras de jóvenes for the youth. We've had promotoras for gardens. So we created the promotora model specific to the needs that we saw in communities in which we worked. So it's not the community health workers that are certified by the state and can be certified by the state. It doesn't mean that some of the promotoras that we have worked with have not gotten certified, because some of them have. So the clinics work very specifically around health issues. These are more on civil rights, on social justice issues, and it could be on the environment, it could be on housing. Okay, so we work very closely, for example, with Tierra del Sol to help them coordinate first-time buyers education, for example, financial literacy. Okay, so the promotoras that we have that work with us, and they don't have a salary from us. They get a stipend because it's kind of hit and miss. Wherever they find a need and they call on us, and we're there, or we help bring somebody else, or sometimes we'll pay for the trainer, you know, whatever they need. But they're not part of the staff. That's the difference.
Jane, did you have a question or comment? Jan? Oh, okay. All right, go ahead, David.
Yes, thank you for all this input. In trying to get a handle on this, so there are these specified communities, the colonias. Do the clients that CDC now serves, do they have to live in certain geographic areas, or is it because I think of the colonias as certain geographic areas, and that may be incorrect.
Okay, so the Legal Immigration Office is a federal, immigration is a federal issue. So we work in Southeast New Mexico. We work in West Texas. We have people from California. We have people from Colorado who come in and initiate their paperwork, and we continue to be their legal representatives. So for the Legal Immigration Office, it's all over the country.
Okay,
It's
so
not just specific to colonias, no.
okay, thank you.
Rosa, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, a couple of comments. I actually came to this country when I was already a professional social worker. I graduated in Mexico, and I was one of those individuals that was reluctant to become a citizen for multiple issues. But one of the main issues that I think is important to discuss is the fact that national pride, you know, you were born and grew up in a country, you went to the university, I became social worker to help people. And then all of a sudden, because of marriage, you know, I live in Mexico originally, and then I was convinced to come to United States, but in United States, my degree didn't mean anything. So I had to learn English. I went to the community college, then to the university, and I always told my students, in 10 years, I learned the language and I got another degree in social work. So I have one from each country. But the other thing why I decided to become citizen is, in fact, Catholic Services in El Paso helped me a lot. And then I went to UCLA. And when I was at UCLA, then they called me and they asked me to come, you know, to have the oath done. And I said, I'm not coming from Los Angeles to do the oath. So I requested that paperwork to be actually transferred to Los Angeles. And I ended up becoming a citizen in Los Angeles. And once again, what Diana is saying is that there's Catholic services here and there's Catholic services over there, so they help me. The other thing that is important to recognize is that when I decided to do my bachelor's here as a social worker, then I learned that many of the jobs are actually governmental jobs. And those government jobs don't hire, some of them don't hire residents. You need to become a citizen in order to be hired. So looking at all those things, you know, I felt very happy with being resident. I have no need to become you know, a citizen. But looking at all that, and at that time I was already widow. My first husband died of cancer. I was in Los Angeles doing my master's and everything. So I said, well, you know, for the future of my family and my ability to survive, it's important to be a citizen. And then I decided, you know, helping people, you can help them anywhere, right? It doesn't have to be Mexico, United States. You can do it anywhere. So I just wanted to mention those couple of things that I think will add to the discussion here.
I see Elisa, you're on. You must have some comments for our guest. Can you hear me, Elisa?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. No, I think Diana has pretty much covered it, and I appreciate her comments. Thank you, Diana.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
I put one in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Bustamante. This is really interesting. I'm an actual immigrant from Cuba, and we got naturalized in '71. But my question to you is, how necessary is it to have an attorney for the process of obtaining citizenship for most Mexican immigrants?
Okay, so the Board of Appeals under the USCIS, okay, it's a body that recognizes organizations like Colonias Development Council, like Catholic Charities and others, to provide this work. In order to legally represent clients under USCIS, people have to be either partially certified, okay, or partially accredited is actually the correct term. And then lawyers are accredited. They don't have to go through any kind of, I mean, if they're lawyers, they represent folks in court. That's no problem. But partial accreditation takes a series of classes, experience. We have to get letters of support from either other organizations, nonprofit organizations, other lawyers, to make sure that the people are qualified to represent the clients. So no, you don't need to be a lawyer. However, it's much cheaper to go with nonprofit organizations than it is to go to a private lawyer.
Okay.
And
so
the
that's a
difference
choice.
the difference can be between $3,000 to $7,000.
Yes.
For
yes.
the same process, because the lawyers are not going to look for the waivers, first of all. Okay, and like I said earlier, 94%, and that's the research that I did myself, because I'm the one that asks for all the numbers from the office. So we figured out that 94% of the people qualify for waivers. Lawyers don't look for that.
Oh,
They won't look for it. It doesn't mean that they can't do it, but they don't, you know.
David, you had a question or comment.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but in the sense of the current organization, which is obviously oriented toward immigration assistance, what's the total budget and staffing, and where does the money currently come from? You mentioned Catholic Relief Services, for example.
Okay, so remember we have two social enterprises that make up the organization. We have Chaparral Family Development Center. That budget is approximately $600,000 with 23 employees. The Immigration Services Office is a smaller operation. It has about $300,000 to $350,000 dollars in the budget. So altogether, we have about $1 million budget. Altogether, we have 35 between 32 and 35, because some of the teachers that teach these classes are work 4 hours a week, 5 hours a week, you know, and so they're considered staff because they're getting paid. But we have 35 employees for the whole organization, and it have about $1 million budget. give or take.
Okay, and that budget comes from like,
Oh, okay, so,
Turkey?
for the immigration office, 95% of the budget for the immigration office comes from fees for services.
okay,
And in Chaparral, right now we have 3 grants, and almost, I would say about 550,000 of that are from the grants. The rest are subsidies for childcare from the state, and also copay from the parents, and reimbursement for the food that is prepared for the daycare center kids. So we're very self-sufficient in terms of the immigration office. Not so much because we have these grants in Chaparral for the Family Development Center, the Early Childhood Education Program. But we have those grants, and I mean, childcare and early childhood education, as you know, Jane, is well funded in the state. And luckily, we have 48 children who are impacted by that.
thank you.
I would like to add,
Go ahead, Rosa.
yeah, I would like to add that because the process is very lengthy, you can tell that a lawyer might be extremely expensive for any family. And I wanted to say that in addition to the regular money, the donations that you provide to Catholic Services and everything, which I did at that time, there were instances where I need to pay for notary services, for pictures, for translation of some of the documents that I have in Mexico. So that's a lot of extra money that goes along. And then I also wanted to mention, Diana, I don't know if you know, but in 1975, I was actually in the School of Social Work in Chihuahua. And we got a person from Cuba coming and training us as community health workers. And during that summer, I actually worked with the Tarahumara natives because the school closes, and then we go there to identify individuals so we can train them as community health workers. So what I wanted to say is that Mexico copied Cuba, during the revolution and the literacy efforts that they have. Mexico was one of the first countries that copied Cuba, and then they brought the community health worker program to Mexico. And then I think it was like 30 years later here in the United States was embracing the concept of community health workers, but it was initially done through Cuba. So I want to give that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gracias.
I want to bring up something else, David, that you asked about fees for services. And Rosa just mentions other things that we provide in the office. We do provide the pictures for the passports. We do provide the translation services also for documents. Okay, so that's also wrapped into the fees that people have. If people say you have a couple, and one of them goes to the class, and the other one says, I don't want to go to the class. I already know all this. I know English and I've been here long enough. So we say, okay, so we get the application from this person who was in the class. If they bring in somebody from the family member gets a discount. If they're in the class, they get another discount. If they fill out because people think that it's just 100 questions and then that's it. And it's not. They ask them questions that are on the actual application. So part of our training is also to have people fill out the application, the N400 form. And so if they fill out that form and they present it, and of course part of the class is that they have to ask the questions from the form itself. But if they do that, if they bring somebody from the family, they get discounts and then more discounts and more discounts. If people don't qualify for the waivers, we have a layaway plan.
Oh.
Okay.
We
So
all
people
gotta have
start
a
paying.
layaway plan.
So people start paying. Yeah. I mean, if they don't qualify, if they make too much money, well, you know what? It doesn't mean that they can't become a U.S. citizen. So we say, you know what? There's no excuse. Start paying us as you go.
Diana, what percent of the colonias in the colonias, what percent of the people living in those 35 or whatever are citizens now today? Do you know?
Well, according to my research, there are 26,000 people in Doña Ana County that are eligible to become U.S. citizens.
Oh,
That are LPRs, the legal permanent residents.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many of those live in colonias or live in Las Cruces. I don't know. But according to the Pew Charitable Trust, just a few years ago, and could be off a little bit, but that's a lot of people. 26,000
Yeah, it is.
people are eligible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know one and she's here.
No kidding.
Agneta.
Jane, you had a question.
Yeah, so my question to you, Deanna, is that, when we give our change to the Colonias Development Council, that money is used to help pay for some of these fees? Is that correct?
Depends on how much it is.
It wouldn't pay for a lot of things.
Okay, so there's like I said earlier, I think David was the one that asked about our budget.
Mhm.
The ECF depends primarily on fees for services, but we also get small grants from the Mexican consulate. Right now we have a $21,000 grant from the Mexican consulate that
Mhm.
pays for people's fees.
Mhm.
Okay, so we applied, for example, with the Community Foundation of Southern New Mexico to help DACA applicants, and we didn't get the grant. But for example, the fees vary depending on the type of adjustment that is needed. So it could be used toward an identified applicant.
Mhm.
It could be used for financial hardship, but we could set it aside. Sometimes, we have families. We had one woman who had cancer, and we were able to offset some of the cost for her. Okay, so there's different ways in which we can help depending on how much money we have. But with the $21,000 that we have from the Mexican consulate, that goes directly to pay the office fees, because we will look for those waivers.
Mhm.
And they do have to qualify. They have to show, of course, the need, financial need. So there's that piece of it.
Mhm.
We have about 5 minutes left. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Deanna, on your website, do you designate which areas are colonias in Doña Ana County? Because you also mentioned, I think, West Texas, and you mentioned Horizon City.
Yes.
But in the county, how do we know where these colonias are?
Okay, so to go to see which colonias exist in the county, you have to go to HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, and you Google colonias in Doña Ana County.
Okay.
And then actually you can do for the whole state. I think there's 142 for the whole state, but you go to the HUD website.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead,
I just want to say that I personally, since I have been here for the past year, I know of 2 people that are they know English and are ready to become citizens, but at the time when they were ready, they didn't have the money. They used the money to pay the rent, to pay for other purposes, and that's the case of a lot of people. Unfortunately, now the fee keeps increasing, and $1,200 is a lot of money for somebody that is, earning the minimum and supporting a family. So I hope that in the future, maybe we can develop a fund specifically to support those families who have everything ready, and they just need to assist them with an extra fee.
That's a great idea, Rosa.
One of the things that, for example, the Mexican consulate does, and this is just one example. For example, they'll say, okay, we'll give this person $500 toward the fee, and they have to pay the rest. It's not the whole thing, but
Yes.
it provides a big chunk of.
It's like
that
a
fee that they have to
scholarship.
pay.
That's a scholarship.
Yeah,
Exactly.
even our congregation could maybe talk about that and maybe match when.
Yes, I will
Mhm.
be willing to contribute to that fund.
That makes
And we
two
know
of
where
us.
to find her, don't we, Deanna?
Yes.
I want to really stress, and just before we leave, that for us, there's no reason why people can't become U.S. citizens. That's what we're promoting. Given the fact, especially after 1996 under Clinton, where a lot of people were deportable because of
Yes,
several misdemeanor charges.
yes.
Okay. Now, so what the office does, if people don't know if they might be deported, if they find out, they have a history of, I don't know, I mean, a series of criminal activities, we do a FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act.
Mhm.
The office will actually solicit information on this applicant. And if he or she has some kind of shady background, they're legal permanent residents, but if they were to apply to become U.S. citizens, it might jeopardize them and they get deported, we tell them, just stay the way you are.
Wow, that's great.
And the
That's
FOIAs
great.
are really important, and that's part of one of the services that we have, that we do provide, just to make
Nice.
sure that everything, because we've had people from USCIS tell us, and I stress this when I go to the classes, don't lie to us. Don't lie to us, because the federal government knows everything. Everything. And when they go to, no, really,
Not they'll
when
find
they go
out.
to, yeah, when they go to the interview, guess what? They have all of this, all this background. And not only will they ask the questions from that are now 128, I think, instead of 100, and then they'll ask questions from the form, but they'll ask about their background. And so we always tell people, very, very clear, don't lie. And if you have any doubts, it's good to just get your FOIA out, and find out.
Yes.
If you want to stay as a legal permanent resident, leave it like that. Don't become a U.S. citizen, because then they are prone to be deported.
Well, it's time is about up, so let's give Diane a big round of applause. With our
Thank
hands.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana.
I hope that helped.
Oh, it helped
Thank
tremendously.
you.
Paul, I have one question,
you.
just a real quick question, please.
Oh, go ahead.
Dr. Bustamante, obviously you're in need of financial donations, but is there anything else that your office is needing in the form of volunteers or areas or projects that other people could kind of jump in and help support your efforts?
Yes, teachers.
Teachers.
The teachers that we have are teachers who are third grade teachers, middle school teachers, and volunteers. And right now we have 4 classes. They're Zoom classes, in fact. We have actually 2 classes, but with 2 teachers each. There's 4 teachers. So we need teachers. Teachers who can speak both English and Spanish, because like I said, the classes are bilingual, but the focus is for them to be able to pass the exam in English.
Okay,
And people don't want to commit to 16 weeks.
right.
I mean, that's a problem. And they have to go through training. They have, they're under our supervision, and it's very time consuming. And so, yeah, volunteers for the classes would be really good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just want to announce for next week's speaker, we're going to have Senator Bill Souls, state senator, and he's going to talk about what's happening in the state legislature, what's good and what's bad, budget, the coronavirus, that sort of thing. So it should be a really good session.
Mhm.
So looking forward to it.
Yeah, sounds wonderful, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you,
Judge.
Deanna.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the donation too.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
thank you, Dr. Bustamante.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Gracias, mil gracias.
It's going to a
Thank you,
good
thank
place,
you.
I can tell.
Abrazos.
Abrazos.
Sí, abrazos.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm,